How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Vav, Daf 76 of Masechta Yevamis. Oops, I meant Masechta Kiddushin. Friends? Alright. The first few lines of the Daf today are like hardcore Yevamis. So hardcore that I'm not even going to try to pretend like I know what it's talking about. But I don't think I really need to know what it's talking about. I think it's enough to just take out the art scroll and translate it. I don't expect you to get it. I don't get it. I don't think we really need to get it. It's the kind of thing you can just memorize, I think. And then it gets into some other stuff. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to start at the Mishnah on Daf Ayin Vav Mud Aleph. So again, I'm just going to read straight out of the art scroll, and then we'll get back. It's just about a minute, and then we'll get back to stuff. So says the Mishnah. The rabbis decreed that before a man marries, he must conduct an investigation into the genealogical status of his prospective wife as outlined in this Mishnah. Here we go. Hanose Isha Kohenes, if one wishes to marry a woman who is the daughter of a Kohen, he must examine the status of 4 of her mothers, i.e. 4 of her female ancestors, and their mothers, which is 8 mothers altogether. Ima ve'emi, specifically, he must investigate her mother, and the mother of her mother. Ve'em avi ima ve'ima, the mother of her mother's father and her mother. Ve'em avi ve'ima, and the mother of her father and her mother. Ve'em avi ve'ima, and the mother of her father's father and her mother. I don't really know what I just read. But bunch of mothers. By the way, I'm basically done with the art scroll for now. You don't really have to understand that. You could just move on. So that was if he marries a Bas Kohen. Now, if he marries a Leviah or a Yisraelis, so mosifin alein od echad. It's one more layer of mothers. I don't really know whose mothers we're talking about, but a bunch of mothers. Okay. Now, moving on. Now, if you know that a fellow here, now we can get moving. I told you it was just like a minute of I don't know what that was, but now we can just go weiter. So if you know that a fellow is a kohen and was serving in the temple on the mizbeach, so okay, you can assume that he's not a mamzer, right? The whole point is we got to check to make sure there's no mamzers over here. Or if you know that a Levite was singing and praising the Lord and singing beautiful niginim on the duchin in the Beis Hamikdash, you can assume he's not a mamzer. If he's a member of the Sanhedrin, he's not a mamzer. If his father was an appointee of the people, we're going to see in the Gemara it means that he was like he was a judge in a just a bezdin of 3 for dinei mamonos. The gaboid tzedakah, or the people in charge of collecting the tzedakah. Masin lekuna vein tzarich livdok achrein. So in all of these cases, you don't have to do your research because you can assume that these people are not mamzerim. Reb Yossi Omer says, Reb Yossi af mishahaya chosum eid be'erkei yishana shel tzipori. Apparently there was a place. I think the place was called Erkei, right? No, I'm sorry. The place was called Yeshana. And in this place called Yeshana, which was near Tzipori, they would have these lists of people that could potentially be judges, i.e. they weren't mamzerim, right? They were from clean lineage. So if they were on the list, so you don't have to do your research. Reb Chanina ben Antigonus, Omer af mishay muchtav bistratya shel melech. Anybody who is muchtav bistratya shel melech, the Gemara is going to explain what that means. Okay. Says the Gemara, Mashna b'noshe badkinon u'mashna b'gavi lo badku. How can we dafka need to check her family and make sure there's no mamzers. What's going on outside? Why don't we have to check his family oichet? Well, because when the women fight, they talk about immorality. I don't really know what that means. But they wouldn't necessarily talk about like mamzerim. So like when they fight, they're not necessarily, calling each other mamzerim. But well, but when the boys fight with each other, they talk about you're a mamzer. So and therefore, if somebody was a mamzer, it would come out. So okay. Tivdok be b'didei. Now, when it comes to Bas Kohen, though, shouldn't you have to be careful that maybe is possible, right? Meaning, just like a halala can't marry a Kohen, so shouldn't we have to be concerned that she shouldn't be able to marry like a halal or anything? So Mseilei l'Rab, Damar V'Yuda Marab, those who ksheris. That no, that's only for Kohens. Kohens can't marry apostle people, but Kohenesses can. So our Mishnah said you have to look into the 4 mothers, which are really 8. It says Avada Barahava, it's really 12. B'masnisa Tana was taught in the Braise. Dalid Moshe Sheshes. There's really 16 mothers. Bishlam Avada Barahava. I can understand Avada Barahava Mekai Mokim La Bilavia. Uvas Yisrael, right? So you could say that by Ravada Barahava, 12 is by Levia and Bas Yisrael, because we said you have to do like one more level. So it's another 4. Ella Masnisa Nema Pliga. What? Ella Masnisa Nema Pliga. Lo, Mayoracha Zugachas. Were there 2 things? Wait, right. In the Braisa it taught 16. So let's say that the Braisa though argues on our Mishnah, because in our Mishnah, how are you going to get to 16? So, Nema Pliga Lo, Mayod Achas Zug Achas. No, you can explain that the Braisa is like our Mishnah, that when it says that for Levites and Yisrael, it's another level, it's another pair of, you got to do 2 for each one, so it's another 8. Got it? Good. Amar of Yehuda, Amar Rav, says if you don't Rav, Zodivei Rav Meir. So this Mishnah is opinion of Rav Meir, right? The whole thing that you have to look into, figure out who's mamzerims and look at everybody's mother. That's why I wasn't too fussed about making sure, I understand whose mothers we're looking at, because ultimately we don't paskin like this. So like it's not so lemaisa, like so you don't, when you get married, you don't have to look at everybody's mothers. This whole thing about the mothers is Reb Meir. Aval chacham call mishpachos. Wait 1 second. Did I do this? I think I did. Yeah. Okay. Where am I? The chacham say call mishpachos bechezkas kashrus hein omdus. That we can assume that all the families are kosher. Ini, is that true? V'amar Rav Chama bar Guria Amar Rab Mishnasenu kishekori olav ir. But Rav Chama bar Guria Amar Rav says that our Mishnah is davka when somebody, said, somebody had a suspicion that maybe somebody said that this girl is a mamzer, meaning by default you wouldn't have to do the research. So what's the chacham arguing on? So man de masniha, lo masniha. So Rav Chama bar Guria quoting Rav is not like Rav Yehuda quoting Rav. Okay, there was 2 Amoraim quoting Rav, and they didn't agree with each other. Ikadam, those who say Amar Rav Yehuda Rav, says Rav Yehuda Rav, so Rav Meir, there's Rav Meir v'chacham but the chacham say kol mishpachos bechezkas kashrus in omdus. The chacham say that all of the families are assumed to be kosher. Amar Rav Chama bar Guria Amar Rav im kore olav ir. But even according to chachamim, if somebody says that she doesn't come she comes from a family of mamzerim, so tzarich livdok achorya, even according to the rabbis, you would have to check. Fine. We said that if a fellow was a priest who did avodah on the mizbeach, so then you can assume he's not a mamzer. So my time outcome, ilabd badkua. Well, if not for the fact that they checked who this fellow is, lo avu maskele, they wouldn't let him serve in the temple on the mizbeach. V'lo min haduchin u'lamala, and not from the Levites who would croon on the duchin in the Beis Hamikdash. My timer. How come? We said that in the Lishkas Hagozis they would sit miyachse kunu miyachse levi, and they would check the yichus of the priests and the Levites. So you can assume that the Levites were not mamzer. V'lo Sanhedrin ulamala, and oichet if he's on the Sanhedrin, so you can assume he's not a mamzer. My time. How come? The Tanu Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef taught Shimshe Bezdin menukin b'tzedek kach menukin mikolmu. That just like the Bezdin, just like the Sanhedrin was righteous, they also didn't have any mums. Amar Meremer Mikra says Meremer, where do we have a verse for this? Kulach yofer ayosi umum ein bach. You are so beautiful, my beloved. There are no blemishes in you. Ein mumma mamish, but maybe it means like literally a mum, like a missing arm or something. Not just that there are mamzer. Amar Vacha Bayakov says Vacha Bayakov. Amar Kol, the pasuk says v'yatzu sham imach b'domim loch. Well, it says by Moses and with the 70 elders that they will stand with you, that they are like you, that just like you are not a mamzer, neither were they. But maybe that was only because they were going to be with the divine presence. That's why they couldn't be mamzerim. But maybe a regular Sanhedrin, or even a Sanhedrin Ketana of 23 judges, maybe they would be allowed to be mamzers. So it says of Nachman, yeah, but when it comes to when Yisro was told Moses to appoint judges, those were just for financial matters, and it still says v'nosu itach b'domim lach, that they're like you, that they're not mamzerim. 1 second, I need to cough, so I'm going to do that off camera. 1 second. Okay, I just coughed off camera. Hopefully that will get me some mileage. Kol mi shehuchziku avosav mishotra arabim. So anybody who is fathers, grandfathers, whatever, they were considered but they were the shotra rabim, which means that they would be on smaller courts, right? 3-person courts for financial matters. But does that mean that in these small courts there's no mamzers? But we have a contradiction. Anybody can judge financial matters, dini mamonis. Which is not the case by dini nefashos, which requires a Sanhedrin Ketana of 23 judges. When we ask, when we say everybody, what does that mean? Meaning even a mamzer can judge financial cases. So therefore, just because he judges financial cases doesn't mean that he is an anti-mamzer. I just didn't want to say it doesn't mean he's not a mamzer, because you know what I mean, double negative. So it doesn't mean he's an anti-mamzer. He's a I don't know, just a regular guy. Anyways, meaning so just because he was on the Bezdin doesn't mean anything. He could still be a mamzer. How is that? You see what I did there? I flipped it around to be the positive. So Rabbi says about Yerushalayim. You hear that? In Yerushalayim. I live in Yerushalayim. Minoge Yerushalayim. In Yerushalayim, they're very chazak over here in Yerushalayim. They're very, very Yerushalayim it's a good place, Yerushalayim. So we're able to view Yerushalayim. The Eibster is going to take care of Yerushalayim, going to take care of Eretz Yisrael. We'll be alright. Gotta be careful, the peanut gallery, the peanut gallery could drive you crazy. So the Nefashos v'avinon bo, and where am I? So in Yerushalayim, even though technically you can have a mamzer in these small bezdins, but in Yerushalayim they didn't do it. Chentani Rav Shimon bar Zera b'Kiddushay de Rav Levi, that Devei Levi Yerushalayim, that's awesome. And Rav Shimon bar Zera taught in the Kiddushay Devei Levi, that Levi, as we know, Levi had his own brises, and so he had his own brises of Masechta Kiddushin. So in the Kiddushin, in the brises of Levi of Masechta Kiddushin, also Yerushalayim, he says Davka in Yerushalayim, they would the minig was that they would not have mamzerim and dinam ominous. V'gaboy tzedakah masim. My time. How come if he was a gabay tzedakah, we assume that he's not a mamzer? Well, came to mansu b'adei inche. Well, because since they fight with the people, right? Meaning it was the job of the gabay tzedakah, a guy goes into shul and he wants to get shishi, and so he pledges a nice pledge, and everyone says, "Ooh, wow, look at this guy." But then then he's got to actually pay it though, and it's the job of the Gabbai Tzedakah to knock on his door and say, "Mr. Fellow, I need you to actually pay what you pledged." So it's not always such a pleasant job. That we take a collateral on tzedakah to make sure that the person pays. And even on Erev Shabbos, so you can imagine what this guy is going to say to the Gabbai Tzedakah. And you can imagine if on Erev Shabbos the Gabbai Tzedakah knocks on the door of this fellow and says, "Hey, I need you to pay up, and if you don't have the money, I need to take a collateral." And this guy says, "Are you serious? Coming to my house on an Erev Shabbos when I'm trying to get everything in order, and this is what you do? This is what you come for? You're a mamzer?" So if he was a mamzer, it would be known. So the fact that he is a Gabbai Tzedakah and nobody calls him a mamzer means he's not a mamzer, right? That was one of the big Kiddushin about my grandfather. My grandfather, Reuben Davis, was a very good man, and he was the Gabbai in the shul for decades, and that was the big Chiddush, was that he was the Gabbai for so long, and nobody could find anything negative to say about him. He was just such a great guy that I mean, the Gabbai in the shul, especially like that, in Long Island, and you got some big personalities there, and nobody ever had anything bad to say about my grandfather. He was a very good man. So, and that's what the Gemara is saying, B'diuk. That's exactly what the Gemara is saying. That if this fellow could be the Gabbai Tzedakah and nobody ever managed to call him a mamzer, you can be sure he's not a mamzer. So now, Ushpazichne de Rav Adabar Ahava Giora Ahava. Now Rav Adabar Ahava he was staying at a place, and his host he was at a kretschmer, and the fellow who owned the kretschmer, so he was a holy proselyte. He was a ger tzedek. So V'hava Kaminsu Iu Rav Bivi. And he and Rav Bivi were both competing for the same role, for the same position. Right? Each one wanted to be in charge of the affairs of the town. So also the time of Yosef, so they came before Rav Yosef, Amalu, and Rav Yosef says to them, Tanina, we learned in the Mishnah, you shall surely place upon yourself a king, from within your midst. Right, so som tosim komasimos sha'ata mesim, any appointing that you do, lo yeyu ella mikerevechecha, should only be from within your brethren, meaning the role should go to Rav Bivi and not to this ger tzedek. So Amalei Rav Adabar Ahava says, Rav Adabar Ahava vafilu imo miYisrael, right, even if his mother was a Jew, so meaning he was born, so his father was a ger tzedek, his mother was a Jew. Ger tzedek is also a Jew, but she was Israelis, and then he was born. So Rav Adabar Ahava says, yeah, but his mother was born Jewish. So Amar Lei, so Rav Yosef says, Imo miYisrael mikarevechecha karina bei. Well, if his mother was miYisrael, so then we would consider him to be mikarevechecha hilkoch. So therefore, they made a pshara, they made a compromise. Rav Bivi, the Gavarabba Hava, who the Ayin B'milei Dishmaya. So since Rav Bivi is is a great sage, so he'll be in charge of spiritual affairs. Umar the Ayin B'milei Demata, and this fellow, the owner of the kretschmer, he will be in charge of kind of communal affairs. Amar Abai says, Abai Hilkach, therefore man the mashritzu b'mirabon b'ush bezichne, if somebody is if a fellow owns a kretschmer and he's going to have a Talmud Chacham stay by him in his kretschmer, the Ashrei, Rav Adabar Ahava, you should have somebody over, like Rav Adabar Ahava, that he can also help him out, because the Talmud Chacham, and if anything arises, you have somebody he has somebody to represent him. Reb Zera mitapel b'hu. Reb Zera would, what does Rashi say? Misasik voim l'chavim lo shivim b'shor. Yeah, that Reb Zera, where am I? Mitabu. Reb Zera would give positions of authority to Ger Tzedeks. Rabbi Bar Avua Mitabu. Rabbi Bar Avua also would give positions of authority to proselytes. B'Marava afilu reish korei lo mukmei minayu. But in Eretz Yisrael, they were very stringent, and they wouldn't put proselytes in charge of even like controlling, of the weights in the market. B'Nardoa afilu reish gargusa lo mukmei minayu. In Nardoa, they wouldn't even appoint them to in charge of like watering the fields and things like that. They wouldn't do that. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yossi had said even somebody who was like on that list of potential judges in that place called something. What was the place called? Yishana. That was near Tzipori. My time I'll come. Daika umachtme, because they would only put the fellow on the list if he was from genealogically pure. Reb Chanina ben Antigonus said something about this if he was written be'istrata shamel. So the question is, what's the istrata shamel? So Amr Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel b'chayalo shel beis David. If he was a soldier in the army of David, then that means that he was not a mamzer. Rav Yosef says of Yosef Mikra. Where's the apostle? V'syachsem b'tzava b'milchama. That Davka people who had pure genealogy, pure yichus, were in the army. V'tayma mai hakam Amar Yehuda Amarav kidei shetei zchuson v'zchusavosam v'sayasam. So that their merit and the merits of their fathers should help them out. And I hope that our merit and the merit of our fathers helps us out during these times. What about Seleka Amoni? My love, the Osimi Ammon. Seems like he came from Ammon. So lo, the Yosef Ammon. No, he lived in Ammon. Ve'ika Uriah Achiti. My love, the Osimi Ches. Uriah Achiti must have come from Ches. Lo, the Yosef Beches. No, he lived in Ches. Ve'ika Ita Agiti. Bechitema Hochinami the Yosef Begas. And if you say that Ita Agiti came from Gas, V'Omer Rav Nachman also Ite Agiti Ba'u Vatla, that Ite Agiti came and he like destroyed the Savod Zarm, and he was not from the Yidden. V'Od Amar Vida Marav Arba Meus Yuladim Hayulo Ludavid. Also Vida said the name Rav that there were 400 young men in David's army. V'chulim b'nei Yifas Torah. They were all the sons of Yifas Torah. V'chulim Mistapim Kumi, and they would have some kind of fancy haircut. Magadim Bloris. They had some kind of fancy haircut. They would be on these gold chariots, and they would be at the head of the army. And they were the powerhouses of Beis David. So they weren't coming from this whole Chusavus thing. So they didn't fight though. These people who didn't have this Chusavus, they would come to intimidate. They wouldn't come to fight. Friends, that was Daf Ayin Vav Masechta Yevamis. Masechta Kiddushin, and honestly there wasn't really that much Yivamis, which was nice. Okay, hope you enjoy. Peace out.